Hi there, welcome to our kitchen. At this point I think everyone knows the dog's on the floor being a pain, so we're just going to gloss right past that. And, as I said in the curry video, I'm going to try and make sourdough bread. I don't know how that's going to go. I've never made sourdough bread. I've made bread like twice before. But, you know, we'll see. Can't be that hard. I'm following a recipe, so it can't be that hard. I'm using a BBC Good Food recipe for this. I've used other Good Food recipes in the past. They've always gone quite well. So we're just going to see how it goes. I mean, I'm jumping ahead a few steps as well, because I've already got my starter. I've had my starter for 9 days now. This is my starter. You can see that it's got lots of bubbles. That's good. It means that it's developed quite well. But as I said, it's about 9 days old at this point. And I actually have, I think total I had 3, the way I've been splitting it. So, starter is, it's kind of making your own yeast for it. So that's kind of the upside of sourdough. You don't need to start it with yeast. You can put yeast in that to accelerate it, but not much point. All you do is you just kind of get flour and water and you feed it every day or every other day, depending on the recipe, the method. It's always a little bit different. So, as I said, today's Friday, I started last Wednesday, so it's 9 days old at this point, and I've got to get the recipe up for this. The starter itself, I have the recipe up on my phone. You start it with 100 grams of flour and 125 ml of slightly warm water. Best way to test that is the back of your hand. It's just a little bit more sensitive to heat than the palm of your hand, so I find it easier to just judge it that way. Literally, my starter jar is still over there because I've split it off every time. You just mix it together until it forms a paste. You want me to show it?
This is Mildred.
This is Mildred, my original starter. Oh my god. It smells sour, that's how you know.
It's kind of like a vinegary...
Yeah.
What smell would you say it is?
Well, see, the recipe says it's meant to smell sweet, and I get it, but it's not that sweet.
No, it's like a sour vinegar.
But yeah, it is kind of vinegary, and all you do, you just kind of put them in, mix them until they form a paste, and then cover it. You can put like a loose lid on. You don't want to seal it, because it forms gas, and the lid will pop off. So I literally have a tea towel and hairband, and it's been sitting in the window. So it's getting like direct sunlight. That will help kind of start. It's not really fermenting, is it?
It is fermenting.
Is it fermenting? Well, I guess it is fermenting. Yeah, it will just kind of start making these little gas bubbles that you've seen with the other one, the one I'm using today. Because this is my daddy sourdough, it just keeps getting split.
Into babies.
Yeah. So the method, the way of actually kind of keeping it alive is feeding it every day. What does this say to feed it? I don't even remember. So you tip half away, or you can split it, which is what I've done. So I just put some like half in another container, and then you feed it with the same as the start. So 100 grams of flour and 125 ml of warm water. Yeah. So you feed it every day. As I said, I've kind of lost track. We got distracted by tractors. However, I did deviate from the recipe at this point because I found that it was getting too wet. So there was the water was separating, and I wasn't quite happy with that. So I actually made it even of 100-100 every time I fed it for the last 3 days. But as I said, you can split it instead of pouring it away, because it does say to pour it away. But I just split it so that I had a lot of different starters, and I can continue it. And I don't know, I might keep this alive forever. I doubt it, because I'll get bored of sourdough eventually. Yeah, you don't need to keep it in the sun. It's just because I've been splitting it and trying to have lots going to film this. Once it's kind of hit that point of being out for a week and it's bubbly and everything, you keep it in the fridge and feed it once a week. Just make sure you stir it every so often. Otherwise it'll just, it'll ferment wrong, I guess. I don't know. My knowledge of bread isn't great. Right, I have the recipe up on my phone because I don't remember it that well. But I do have everything near me. So I'm making mine with the mixer. You can make it by hand. If you want to knead it for 20 minutes, be my guest. I'll talk through both while it's mixing. But for the actual recipe itself is 500 grams of flour, I think. Yep. Oh god. Did I get enough? I don't think I did. Oh my god. I barely got enough flour. Yeah. And then 225ml of warm water. As I said, you can check with the back of your hand. Yeah, that's fine. Well, that's already measured out. Then I'm going to add the starter last. You would normally add honey as well. It's a tablespoon of clear honey. I don't actually have any honey at the minute, but you can use a little bit of golden syrup and a bit of extra water, so I did have extra water. I'm going to use a little bit less than it says as well, because golden syrup is just too sweet. I mean, that's roughly a teaspoon, right? Then we want about a teaspoon of salt, and then your starter. Oh, look at it. That's so weird, man.
I love the fact that we can always see a tablespoon, a teaspoon, a half teaspoon measurement in the shot, and you just always just use your Andrew measurement method.
It's fine. To be fair, bread isn't as specific as some baking. Like, not for things like salt. But like flour and water, and if you ever use butter in it, then yes, but not like salt and not that, because that's mostly for flavour, not for consistency. So, oh, my phone's wet. My god, this is a kilo. I'm not going to talk while it's actually mixing, but as I said, I'm using my mixer, I'm using a dough hook. You can do it by hand, you just got to combine it lightly and then work with your hands for the rest of it in a big bowl. Eventually you're going to need to knead it on a floured surface, but I'm doing it all in the mixer because I'm lazy. As well, with the mixer I have a little bit of extra flour and a little bit of extra water near me, as well as some spoons. So if the dough is either kind of too wet or too dry, I can have water or flour to make it kind of the right consistency. If you're using a mixer as well, start it on low and get quicker, because you don't want to have it on high straight away, because the dough will fling everywhere. You want it to combine and then put it higher to knead it. That has mixed and roughly kneaded in the machine. I kneaded it for a little bit extra than the recipe said. It says 5 minutes, I think I did about 7. So it's kind of a nice point. It's stretchy, bounces back on itself, and it's slightly sticky. And as you see, the machine is crazy. I'm going to try and leave that clip in of it going buck wild. So we want to prove it. We're proving this now for 3 hours. And like, it's a very long proving process for this.
At room temp.
At room temp. So we're going to oil a bowl. I've got my glass bowl. I've got some olive oil because it's quite a nice flavour to olive oil. So I'm literally just going to pour a little bit in the bottom, spread it, and then just chuck the dough in and cover it. What I did yesterday, and I don't know how well this works because again, not made it, and you know, spoilers, I made this yesterday. I actually put it in and then flipped it so that the whole thing is coated in oil.
It helps it not to dry out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't think the top's going to dry out because I'm going to cover it with cling film as well. So it shouldn't dry out. On the recipe, I do remember reading this. It said, because obviously we're proving this for 3 hours now, it might not rise that much, but it's because the proving process on this is actually 7 to 11 hours. So we're going to prove this now for 3 hours at room temp. I normally put it like in a window, so it's got direct sunlight, because that will help. If you have a proving set on your oven, that also works quite well. I think you can do a low temperature to prove, but I I'd rather not, it's just I don't want to be leaving the oven on, especially when it's already this hot.
It's really hot today.
Like, stupid hot, I'm starting to sweat. But after we've proved it for 3 hours, we'll knock out some of the air, and you can prove it again for like 4 to 8 hours at room temp, or what I did was you can prove it in the fridge overnight, and we'll go over that a little bit later, but honestly it's fine. It doubled in size in the fridge overnight. We've let the dough rise for about 3 hours now. I don't know if you can tell, I can kind of see it has risen a little bit. Sourdough is a little bit different than other bread. It doesn't rise at the same rate as other bread. It is a lot slower, to be honest. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to kind of set it up into the shape I'm going to be baking it in, which means I've got to take it out of this and basically transfer it into this. I'm using a loaf tin somewhere there, and we're going to layer the bottom with a tea towel covered in flour, and then we're going to prove it in that. If you were baking it the same day, you'd prove it for about 4 to 8 hours. You want to see significant growth again, but I'm going to actually prove mine in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow when I bake it, I'll take it out, prove it for about 2 hours at room temp, and then just bake it off. I've also oiled my hands so that I can get this out easily, and so that it doesn't stick to me. I'm just going to pull it off the sides. Cool. Now I regret oiling my hands. I've done this in the wrong order.
You have, you should have floured it
I should have
first.
floured this up first. I'm going to set this up now after I messed that up. So as I said, I'm just going to put this in and flour it. I've got to move the dough. You want to be pretty liberal with this. You don't want it sticking. So that means I'm also going to flour up the sides a little bit. I mean, if it sticks a little bit, it's not a huge issue. But there is such a thing as a proving basket. It's like a little woven basket. It's a little bit wider than that. And it gives you quite a nice shape. It gives you like a kind of rugby ball shape, which is kind of better. I don't have one. I don't make a lot of bread, so I never felt the need. We're going to flour our work surface, again being pretty liberal with it because it's great, it's restuck. Oh. So we just want to knock out some of the air, just lightly kneading it and getting it to be kind of soft. You'll be able to see it's quite stretchy, snaps back on itself and shouldn't tear too much. And when it's kind of a solid mass, we'll put it in the what we're going to prove it in. And yeah, you don't need to do this for very long, like a minute. You'll see I've left a seam underneath. It's kind of just where it's not fully come together. We're going to leave that as a seam. And then this is the fun part. As I say, when everything, well, nothing is fun whenever I say that. We're going to put this in there, seam side up. So roll, plop. And we'll let that prove in there. And to finish the proving, I've got to put, well, I don't have to, but I'm gonna, that's what the recipe says. Put a bit of cling film over the top with a little bit of oil on it. It doesn't need to be super tight on there, but you want to make sure that it's not gonna rip off. So leave it a little bit loose, and I'm gonna prove this in the fridge, cook it tomorrow, and I'm gonna cook one now, I guess. Yeah, that's it. I've got to warm up the oven quickly. So we're preheating it to 210 degrees Celsius. I think it's a gas mark 9. This is definitely a point where I need to check the recipe because I don't want to ruin this bread this late in it. Where is it? So, heat the oven to... What the fuck?
Someone's having a little music party outside.
Yeah.
It's gone now.
We're going to heat the oven to, this says 230 Celsius, 210 Celsius on a fan oven or gas mark 8. So we'll do that, and then the step after that is to fill a tin with some water. We're going to heat, I'm going to use my brownie tin, because I don't have anything decently sized to go in the oven that's metal. We're going to do that so that there's steam going in the oven, so that the bread doesn't dry out too much as we're baking. That's kind of from my knowledge of baking, not from the recipe, it just says to do this to make steam. We're going to preheat the tray as well that's going in, so that when you put the bread on there, it's going to get like a nice crust at the bottom as well. I'm using a giant tray because I don't know how big this bread is going to get, to be honest. For my Blue Peter moment, here's one I made earlier.
Yesterday.
Like literally yesterday. From that dough, it's now this big. Obviously, depending on how I cut this, you'll see the way I've done this. So obviously we knocked out the air and then we put it in a bowl and we raised it in the bowl to give it a shape. And then I left this one in the fridge overnight. What time? I think I put it in at like, was it? No, I put it in yesterday at like 4 in the fridge. Took it out this morning about 11:30 and let it prove again for about 2 hours. But actually I think it's about 3 hours now at room temp. Yeah, about 3 hours at room temp and it got to this. So you can see it's got lots of air, you can push it and it kind of springs back. It's jiggly. It's definitely a lot bigger. It was about half the size when it went in. I don't know what happened. It dried out a little bit on one side, but that's fine. And now we're just waiting for the oven to preheat before we do anything with this. There.
Cool!
But I'm very happy with how this looks.
Yeah, I'm calling it Mildred's baby.
Yeah.
That's literally one giant bubble.
Yeah,
right
I have a lot of like giant bubbles, which I'm very proud of because when I made it yesterday, it didn't seem like it had a lot of air in. The starter, like it was bubbly and it was nice and it smelled lovely, but it just didn't seem like it was fully there. And then it exploded. Yeah. We had like a normal jam jar size jar because at the time, I didn't think it would expand that much. And eventually, it just went, I don't know when it happened, overnight one night, that was just covered with starter, like where it lives in the window. There you go. So we preheat the oven, as I said. We put the tray in so that the tray is preheating as well. I'm going to sprinkle some flour on it. I can't remember how much the recipe said because my phone's over there and I'm covered in flour now. I'm not gonna lie, I'm being pretty liberal with it. I really don't want it to stick to the tray. I don't know how well this is going to go, but I've got to get that on there. So when you're doing it, you want to get this, the top part in the bowl, as the bottom part. Someone's got their pig. And I've got one shot of this because this is getting too cool too fast, so let's see how well this goes. Ah, that was going so well.
So it's stuck to the towel really bad?
Really bad.
Oh dear.
But I don't actually know what to do in this situation. I was not prepared for this. What I am going to do.
Cut it.
Yeah.
Slice that bitch. I'm going to have lots of fun washing that towel now.
Yep.
So the lesson here is...
add more flour to your towel. That is the lesson. I'm going to still add a quick slice to that. And just do that. Just in case, because it's already a little bit sticky, I'm going to add a little bit of extra flour on top. And then cook it, and we'll see what happens. This probably won't work.
If it doesn't work, there is no video.
I'll step it up. I think that is cooking for 35 minutes? 35 to 40 minutes. And then we'll check it. After about 35 minutes, I checked it. Well, I checked it. It's a little bit dark, but it is ready. It's still quite warm. I've actually let it sit for about 20 minutes out as well. The way you test if bread is ready is kind of you knock the bottom, and if it sounds hollow, it's ready. It's kind of similar with a few other things as well. Like scones are weirdly similar for that, but it's ready. As you can see, I'm going to get flour everywhere. That's a little bit dark, but it has softened up a little bit since it's been out. The recipe itself says it should be golden brown. That is not golden brown, that is burnt.
I don't know, it's not burnt.
Yeah.
I'm sure it won't taste burnt. It's just got a lot of colour to it.
Yeah.
And it is, when you touch it, it isn't. It's more like a crusty roll on the outside.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't really know what sourdough is meant to be like. I just thought I'd make it because I've never made it. So this is still quite warm, but
yeah,
that is successful. If I'm right, like.
Do you want to bring it a bit closer to the camera? Like hold it up a bit.
Like, I'd say that's successful. It's got the air bubbles. I haven't got any of the big air bubbles. Oh, see that? There's a big air bubble at the top. Yeah.
Sorry, it needed focusing there.
I think that's a success. I don't like bread as much as you, so...
I really love bread.
I think that's quite nice.
Yeah, I like it. It's definitely a crustier
Yeah.
outside than you probably need.
It's not particularly... It's not that flavourful.
But then it's a
The
really
crust
early
is-
starter.
Yeah. The crust is, in my opinion. Yeah. We're going to turn this into garlic bread later on. I don't know how well that's going to go. Because, as I said, we're having pasta, so I'm going to make some garlic butter. We'll see how it goes with that. Who knows? I think that's it. I made sourdough. I think that's it for us. Yeah, he agrees. Yeah. So we will see you next time. Bye. Oh my god!